This is episode 333. So hopefully we go without a hitch and Ira doesn't zoom in with his gravelcopter. But who's going to be number one? Max Rycroft. Very good. You are number one. Today you are the special boy. Liberty Stead missed out. You have to try harder. So it's episode 333 tonight. So hopefully it goes without a hitch and we don't get planes flying through the windows or anything else that the grabber would like to do to us. Today we're going to have Danny Vega on. Some of you know him, some of you won't. But he's a cool guy, he's a legend. So we're going to be talking health, fitness, and then wherever it goes from there. So let's see who's in. Andy J is in, Liberty Stead, House the Great. Welcome y'all. I am freezing cold. I know I start every stream with I am freezing cold, but I still am. It's England and it's, what are we in, February? February. So it's freezing cold. And I've been to the match tonight, which was even colder. So if I do some hand rubbing, it's not because it's episode 333, it's because I'm freezing. Give us 1 sec, I should just invite you, Danny. Okay, doke.
What's up, brother?
Well,
can you hear me?
Yeah, all good.
Awesome. So you went to a match, you said?
Yeah, I've just been to watch Liverpool play. You're making me feel cold wearing a t-shirt there. I'm sitting here rubbing my hands together. I've got a hot water bottle behind me. I'm breathing smoke.
I don't know how to put this in Celsius, but it's 70 degrees right now. I mean, it gets down to like, right now it gets down to the 40s, which is cold for us in Florida. Mm-hmm. But yeah, It's like 70 degrees, man. So I was out there. I did my afternoon walk in a tank top and shorts.
Must be nice.
Must be nice.
Exactly. No, I'm free. I was cold anyway, and I've had a busy day. I've been basically, we got a van load of wood delivered. The place where my wife works, she works at a car dealership, and they have all the crates that the engines come in.
Okay.
And so they drop them off here because they can't do anything with them. So they drop them off here. I break them up, and I get free firewood basically.
So do you have a wood stove?
Yeah. We don't use the heating or anything. We just use a wood stove.
Man, that's awesome.
But because I've been out tonight, it's not been lit, so now it's pretty Baltic here. So yeah, I've been doing that, and then I went to the match. So I took my dad, which was nice because my dad stopped going. I mean, we went together for like 20 years, and then he stopped going about 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay.
It was just too much for him, like the walk into from the car to the match, and then it was just too much for him.
Does it get rowdy?
Yeah, I mean, there's 60,000 people there. Wow. So it's and we're quite a kind of a noisy fan base. Do you know what I mean? We get sort of into it.
Sure.
But I mean, it's all good fun and stuff. But yeah, I took him tonight, so it was good to go back to the match with my dad for a bit.
Nice, man.
Yeah, just freezing. So what have you been up to? You've had another stream tonight, haven't you?
Oh yeah, I was on a stream. This guy wants me to. I'm gonna speak at an online event that he's doing next week. It's kind of like it's all about fueling for success. So this guy is like an engineer who his big focus is just trying to bring a bunch of people together and just. My big thing this year, man, is all about community and accountability. Mm-hmm. Like we've completely lost all concept of real communication, in-face interactions. And so with my group of people locally here and with my boys, my 2 sons, that's never left. We've created a culture, man. It's amazing how when you start acting a certain way, people around you just kind of say, oh, wow, it's okay to be outside all day and all night. Like my block is like this little oasis here where, like when we first moved here, we built this house in 2016 And the friends around the block saw that my boys were always out, past the sundown, and now it's just like it's always like a group of 10 kids together, like the 80s and 90s when I grew up, so that's basically it's amazing, man. Like that, I've noticed that number one, if you just find a group of people that are like-minded, you don't have to, because a lot of times, like for example, with parents start to feel like they have to step in when their kid's not acting how they think other people think their kids should act.
Yeah,
but when you're around a group of people who are like-minded, you could just let them be the way you want them to be. And so it's amazing, man. We have our own little oasis, and it just goes to show everything that Bear talks about, everything this community talks about is, like just creating the community that you want to see. It's never going to change from the top. It never would have changed from the top, even before. So this is really like where the way we see it is like, it's two of us, me and my wife, where there were two, now there's four of us, and now there's 10 of us, and that's how it happens.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you lead by example, don't you? I mean, you can preach all day long, but you lead by example. People see it, and it doesn't take long, like you said, before people sort of, well, I want that, I want to join in on that.
Yep.
And so that's the thing. And again, from it's been led from the top to kind of break it up, if you like. So the top isn't going to change. You've got to change, and not go along with it.
Yeah,
I think
it's really weird.
Go on.
I was gonna say, I think it's really, really weird that all of a sudden the whole entire world just like that just decided that everything's going back to normal. Like it's just really, it's just really, really odd. And I mean, I'm happy about it, but I'm just letting people know, man, like, don't think that this is something that, because it just kind of, you get lulled into this false sense of security. And then you also get told like, well, we made a mistake. So then it's like, okay, well, they made a mistake. So next time when something happens, if they overstep, they'll eventually figure it out. So we should keep listening to them. That really bothers me, man. So I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm just like screaming in the wind, but I still try to use my platform to just help people. I don't know. Reading my Bible, I just realized there's so many things that the Bible says that it's just gonna happen. Like I was just yesterday reading in Matthew, Jesus. They asked Jesus, like, why do you speak to them in parables? He's like, because these people, they have eyes they can't see, they have ears they can't hear, their hearts are dull. So I'm gonna just speak to them in parables because it's not like they're gonna understand it anyway. But I still try to, because there's it's amazing. There's a group of people that. And a lot of them are people that I wouldn't even expect. They just start to kind of get it. And like some of them may not be local, but at least like in their little communities, they're starting to just kind of do the same thing,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's all it takes sometimes. Do you know what I mean? And then you can say people see it and they follow. And then, because like you said, in the 80s and 90s, I mean, there was just kids everywhere, wasn't there? And there was no like, people in vans going scooping them all up, and people weren't falling and breaking their neck every 5 minutes and stuff. You fell over, you scratched your arm or something, you got up and you had a laugh about it and you went off. Do you mean? And that was the way it was, and people took the mick out of you, or you got into a fight or whatever, but it made you who you were. Do you mean? And that was, if you kept getting beaten up by someone, you'd left them alone and you went and played over there or whatever. It wasn't. Yeah. Well, it wasn't a big deal.
It wasn't, man. It's all about where the focus goes. Because, like, honestly, we had someone on our podcast. We've had our podcast since 2018. We had this woman. Her name is Lenore Skenazy, and she wrote a book called Free Range Kids, and her title is America's Worst Mom. Because she got like really in trouble because she was in New York City and she let her kid ride the subway alone. Right. And she brought up some really interesting things, man. When we grew up, I grew up, I was born in 1981, February 1981. Yeah. So like when we grew up was like the highest statistics for kids getting abducted. All that stuff was when we grew up. But it's interesting, all of like the changes were made way after, and we're like at a 50-year low for all of these things as far as kids getting. But the problem is you have these TVs beaming these things into parents' heads. So you have people that grew up in places like rural places. Their average radius of playing was like 3 or 4 miles, and now they're not letting their kids go up the block.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's crazy. You ask them, did you enjoy your childhood? They're like, yeah. And then you ask them, well, why don't you do that with your kids? They're like, well, I don't know, things are worse now. And it's not worse at all.
Yeah.
Yep. It's crazy.
No, I've had the same experience. I mean, I've got a son and he's 19 now. But I had the same thing with him growing up because, I mean, I was an only child. He's an only child. And I mean, I had two brothers, but they died like really young. So I was essentially an only child. But I used to just get on my bike and just go. Do you know what I mean? And I'd just go for a bike ride. And half the time I had no idea where I was going. I'd just go down that path, and then there was a canal, and I'd go over there. And then you'd be out all day, and then you'd come back, and you'd ridden whatever 10, 15 miles around in a circle, and then you'd come home.
Yeah.
And there was nothing better, do you know what I mean? Because that was your independence, that was your freedom.
Yeah.
And I'd say to him, like, just go, because he'd be around the house. He'd say, oh, I'm bored and stuff. And I'd say, well, get on your bike and go, right, where? I don't know, just go on your bike. Why? You know what I mean? He couldn't comprehend, like, why that would be fun.
It's interesting. I don't, you got to take this story with a grain of salt because obviously this guy's part of like the whole machine, but I still use the story because the concept of it is exactly what you're talking about. So there's a story that Richard Branson, I don't know if you've heard the story. He was like 4 or 6 years old, and his mom told him, because she was a single mom, and I think she was like a flight attendant, and she was afraid that if something happened to her, he wouldn't be able to get on with his life and take care of himself. So she tells him they're like 8 miles away from his house. She's like, you think you can find yourself home? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And so spends several hours finding his way home, and he ends up at home, and he says that from that point on, nothing in his life was difficult. Like I said, I don't know if the story's real because he's part of the whole Tavistock, like everything. Yeah, but it's definitely like something that, it's definitely not something that we encourage, and it's something that we should encourage, give your kids responsibility, give them freedom. That my kids just figure things out, because they're barefoot half the time. They're always out there. They don't have video games. They don't have any of that crap. And it's just like, they're so different. And, they have to be comfortable with that because as they grow, it's only going to get worse. So it started with the fact we've always homeschooled. So that's already weird. We eat like a paleo keto diet, especially with them. That makes them weird. So we have to, that at this point, my oldest, he's 11 years old. He's totally okay with being different. And that's important because he's not going to fall victim to all of the stuff that makes kids think that they got to act a certain way, Well,
I'd say, you've got to, your kids are probably 10 years older in their heads than, you know what I mean? By the time they're 20, they're going to have adult brains. Whereas a lot of them now, by the time they're 20, they're still kids. Do you know what I mean? They're still, they act like kids, they behave like they've no responsibility, they've no kind of like independence, if you like. Because
school does that.
Yeah, exactly. The school system. I wish I'd homeschooled. And we thought about it, we put it off. We thought, we'll give it another year, and then it was just too late by then because he'd got his group of friends, and he was fourth and it was just I don't think it would have been in his best interest at that age. But I wish we had done it. But even that. From my school, I live now about 5 or 10 miles away from where I grew up, and there's basically 2 schools in this area. There's 2 little villages, and there's 2 schools. And when I went to school, it was, you just kind of got on with it. You know what I mean? There was no structure particularly at school. You just went in and then you did your thing and you had fun and you came home. His school was like a military camp. They literally had the teachers with megaphones like yelling at them in the playgrounds and stuff. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it was like.
Rounding them up.
Yeah, and then, they had to have the blaze a certain way. There was only certain haircuts they could have. They had to have the same color bag. Do you mean all these little things, but it all adds up to kind of like, it's just total control. So then they all kind of fall in line, but you're not doing them any good doing that because once they leave, that structure's not there anymore, and they're kind of lost. So then they look for structure, and then that's the government or the news or whatever that becomes a structure. So they,
100%, man. You just reminded me of something that it goes with our parenting, the way we parent. we always were like, we always made sure we told them when they were really young, number one, you know, we taught them about property rights, and property rights start with your body. Like, your body is yours. If grandma and grandpa want you to give them a hug, and you're not in the mood to give them a hug, it's okay. You're not gonna get me to do that for you. I'm not gonna make you do that. And you know, just like that, you know, if you get into an argument with another kid, don't come to me to fix your problem. Now, what's the opposite that happens? Kids are taught to find an authority figure to fix their problem for them. And then it's no wonder why they grow up into people who become people who are like, he's not wearing a mask, I need someone, you know, like
yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously done. I mean, they do think ahead of time, these people. I mean, they do plan it. And so you've got an entire generation that's raised like that, and then this is the result of it. I mean, it sounds awful. I mean, I've said it to my wife a few times. He's never been in a fight, my son. And that, to me, I mean, again, we've grown up in the same area, and I was constantly in fight because it was just. Do you mean I wasn't an idiot, or I wasn't, you know, anything like that? But it was just what everybody did.
Yep.
I mean, because you'd be out with each other all the time, and you'd be out, you know, you'd be playing football, or you'd be playing whatever. Do you mean, or you'd be competing against each other, and it would end up in fights. And it wasn't a big thing, you know, like 5 minutes later or whatever, it's forgotten, or the next day or something. But he's never had one, and
it's
so it sounds bad.
Different.
Wanting to be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the culture's different. You know what I say? Like, I have this, I have this idea that, you know, when you go get your license. You know, you go get your driver's license. If you haven't been punched in the face yet, you should go. There should be like a little separate thing where you go and you get punched in the face, and then you go along and you leave with your license. Because, like, that's the thing it's true. That doesn't exist anymore. And, you know, with my son, like, I put him in martial arts pretty early. And I remember the first time he went to spar, I'm like, listen, you're going to get punched in the face, and it's going to be very offensive. You're going to feel like, oh my gosh, you're like, I just got punched in the face. And you're going to cry probably. And sure enough, you know, the first time it happened, he really did. But man, I'm telling you, like, it's something that's really, it just, I was kind of a knucklehead, and I didn't grow up in the same area. I grew up in Miami, and Miami is a whole different world. I got kicked out of my middle school for violent crap. And my kids, I tell my kids are like the rich kids that I would have played with, you know? So I have to really find things that are going to put them in adversity, because if I don't, that's so important, man. So, like, sometimes we'll go on hikes, and I'll get us lost, and that's pretty easy because I have a terrible sense of direction, so I'll just get us lost. So we got to do that, man. We got to do that because that's part of it, you know. That's a part of it. And, like, you know, I'm really big on it's important that your father, when you become a man, it's important that your father tells you at a certain point, at the appropriate time, you've become a man. Like, you pass on the torch. At the same time, you can't just give it to him. Because if you just say you've become a man and he hasn't done anything to earn it, in the back of his head, he's not going to believe you. So, you know, you got to have certain, like, benchmarks that you do. So I have ideas, things that I do, like camping, things that we've done. Absolutely, things that ground them. Yeah. So we've done primitive camping several times. And as he gets older, he knows how to shoot a gun now. He learned how to shoot when he was 9. So, you know, he shot a 22 rifle, a 22 handgun, my 9mm, and then definitely want to take him on a hunt, you know, within the next couple of years. He's ready for it, you know. So all of those things, they just make you capable, you know, and they make you comfortable, because a lot of the time people get really nervous with things that they don't know, you know, and actually people are much more dangerous when they have no knowledge, you know. So you put a gun in front of someone who doesn't know how to use it, that's a disaster, you know.
Well, I mean, you don't become a man because you reach a certain magic number.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
The right age, and like you said about getting punched in the face or something. I mean, a lot of cultures have that, don't they? With the kind of the coming of age.
Yeah, rites of passage. Yeah. Native Americans are big on that.
So I mean, that's probably what we need, really. And I think most people would fail it. I think most adults would.
Yeah, you know, when the men failed it back in the day, they wouldn't go hunting. So, like, they would stay home with the women, and, you know, it's not exactly a punishment, but it's probably the worst punishment that you can get. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, no, Jimmy, you know, you didn't pass your rite of passage. You know, like you stay home with the woman, you could, you know, you can grow the crops. You know, that's kind of like, man, a man doesn't want to do that. You know?
Exactly. So when just switching it a bit, obviously you know your fitness and your health side and stuff. I mean, is that something you've always been into, or was it something that came a bit later on? Or
man, to be honest, that's always been, you know, my parents worked really hard. You know, my parents came from Cuba, so my dad didn't even graduate high school. So they had me in after school care. And I'm telling you, I was like 5 or 6 years old. And the guy who took care of us, you know, the guy who's like in charge of the after school care program was a bodybuilder. So, you know, the kids were out playing hide and seek. And I was just with this guy in the playground, just watching him do pull-ups, you know, looking at the magazines with him. So way back then, I knew I wanted to be like muscular, you know, and I didn't know what it meant. So also my dad went through an addiction, and that led to me being really violent. You know, I had to go through anger management after I got kicked out of my middle school. And the best thing that could have happened to me was getting into football. Now I'm not a really big fan of football. I'm kind of glad that the boys don't play, but for me it was awesome, you know, because I just channeled myself. And by the time I was in high school, you know, I was just working out, getting strong. And then when I went to college, I played college football. I loved football, but I was also the teacher's pet in the weight room. So, you know, like I loved my strength coach. And then he left me after my sophomore year. And he went on to coach at another college. And then he went to the NBA, and he was the strength coach in the NBA. And when I graduated, I got my master's at University of Florida, started working with the teams there. And I called him up and I'm like, I'm going to be a strength coach like you. And he was like, no, don't do it. So I was like, not the pornos magazine, no. Someone said not the pornos, definitely not. So yeah, I started to do that, and that was my first career. You know, my office was a weight room. I was the head strength and conditioning coach for a college. So I got out of that after a few years. I wasn't making much, so I came back home and I went to work. But in 2016 was when it really came back, because I was powerlifting and I was competing in powerlifting, and I was real competitive in that. And then I got a big injury, so I had to get healthy. And my buddy was telling me about this ketogenic diet, and I was like, "What do you mean ketogenic? You know, cutting carbs? That sounds ridiculous. You know, like that went against everything that I ever believed." And at the time, I kind of, you know, I had already dieted to lose some weight because I had a bad knee injury. And I just said, you know what, let me try this. Man, let me tell you, 2 days into it, my joints were feeling better. I just felt much younger. And I played on AstroTurf in college, so my body was wrecked. I was a power lifter. So that's what really led to me getting back into this field was that diet, you know, because I just saw so many different things. And on top of that, at the time, I was working in the healthcare industry. I was a medical device rep. So I was part of the beast, you know, like I was making a ton of money, you know, and I could just tell you a bunch of stories about how, like, for example, I left in 2018. My parents to this day ask me, why don't you go back? Why don't you go back? And I'm like, first of all, I can't go into a hospital without, you know, getting the juice. Second of all, you know, it's just completely unethical. And they can't comprehend that. But what I've learned, and this is even before 2020, is, you know, that system, it kills people. Like, not only does it keeps people sick, but over time, it eventually kills you. And you're completely, it doesn't matter. And everyone, I don't want to say everyone, because some people actually know that it's evil and they continue to do it, you know? But most people are just deceived, you know, like they buy into, because imagine you go to school and you get trained in a certain way, and you think that's all you know what to do. So like, you know, there's very few people nowadays who actually work on getting people healthy. Everybody's part of this sick care system. And, you know, part of what we do with our business is, you know, number one, my specialty is obviously performance. So, you know, I want to show people how to use a low carb diet to, you know, to build muscle, to get ripped. But also more importantly, what I notice is I work with all these people, and then they realize that their families, they're still feeding their kids, you know, crap food. They're not feeding them real food. So they're like, how the heck am I going to get my kids on board? So that's been like a big thing for us, because with the children, man, it's even worse. You know, like the children, you know, these kids, they don't have physical education. My boys are always active. You know, my son did his first adventure, like not adventure race, obstacle course race when he was like 9 or 10. And man, I was looking, it was just like an incline little like step ladder that you had to climb over and go over. And man, I saw this little kid, man, that couldn't get up that. And I was just like, is he serious? Like, and it's just these kids, they're overweight, yes, but they're also really, really weak, you know, and they're all types of weak. You know, their immune systems are weak. They don't have muscle. So that's a big deal, man, because the more people, you know, Big Bear talks about it all the time, you know, the more people that you have that are dependent on the system, the easier things are. And we're at a point now where at the very least 40 to 50% of people are very dependent on the system, whether it be the food system, the healthcare system, all of it. And, you know, it's a problem for us because we could say, you know, just let them go to hell. But the problem is when enough people get part of that group, we become a major, major hindrance. Like we're the ones that are going to be blamed for everything, you know? So that's why
it affects our lives as well. Do you know what I mean? As much as we can, you know, we're not complying and it still affects your life a little bit. Do you know what I mean? It's still an issue. It's still, you know, it's still a problem. I mean, my wife's going into hospital on Monday. She's got, it's weird really. She's got 3 sets of teeth at the back. And it's just like a genetic freak thing that she was born with. And she had her wisdom teeth taken out like about 5 years ago. But she's got this other set that have like just stayed in a gum. And they said, if, you know, so long as they stay there, we'll leave them. Because they're not doing anything, but they've started to sort of come through a bit, but they're affecting like her sinuses and stuff. So she's going in on Monday to have them sort of removed, but it's quite a big thing because I think they haven't sort of come through really at all, so they've got to go right into the gums again.
Cut it open.
I don't know if they're going to break a jaw or what they're going to do to sort of get to them. But anyway, we had to go into hospital twice this week for like pre-op stuff. And it was just constant, like everyone we're speaking to, because neither of us were wearing masks or anything, and it was just constant, you know, where's your mask? You got to wear your mask. You got to stand over there. I was telling a couple of people the other day, when we went in, we had there's like a narrow corridor, like a hospital corridor, and then the waiting room where we're obviously to wait to see the doctor. There was one person in the waiting room. The waiting room was massive, and they've got like a chair, table, chair, table, you know, for social distancing and all this. And he said, you can't go in there because you haven't got masks on. And there's someone in there, so you can't go in there. So you have to wait in the corridor. So we both had to stand in the corridor. But in the corridor, it's packed. You've got people wheeling, like sick people past you on beds and all this. So how is it safer there than in there? Do you mean? But they can't comprehend that. They can't, like, they're just so gone. It's just... But, like I say, that kind of it does affect your life a little bit, you know. So it's they're the ones who are ultimately losing out, but still, it's, you know, you got to kind of educate as many people as you can, really.
Yeah, let me tell you
what you said about the kids being sort of just weaker. I mean, my lad, he's played on a football. I mean, he's finished now. He stopped playing when he was 18, but he played on a football team. I think he started when he was 9. So he played under 9s, under 10s, under 11s, under 12s, like all the way up. And it was like basically like the same core of lads who were sort of in the team, and they all grew up together. So we'd go watching them every weekend and stuff. And they were like, them and the team they were playing, by half time, they were completely sort of knackered, do you know what I mean? And they had no sort of strength in the shots. They had no strength in the tackles. They were just kind of just being there, do you know what I mean? They were just on the pitch. You know, it wasn't a competitive game. I mean, when I used to play, you were banging into each other. You were, it was tough, because you had your pride and your competitiveness and stuff. They don't. They just wander around. And it was doing my head in for years. Like it was just, and then eventually it's just the way they are now. There's nothing.
Well,
All
I
I
mean,
can
there's
do
so
is
many
try and make my
factors,
life
man.
stronger. But
Yeah, there's a lot of factors, like, from the healthcare part of it, from the health side. And by the way, one of my buddies, Adrian, my co-author, we wrote a children's book together. He's like, his little brother doesn't know how to climb a fence, doesn't know how to jump a fence. I mean, it's just like, it's crazy. That there's so many levels to it that explain why that is, between, turning everything into plastic that has a bunch of, hormonally disruptive stuff in it, the foods, the amount of wheat that has soy in it, the amount of soy and everything. So it's like, and then it's no wonder why we see so many different things. Like, I don't even want to get into it because of how many people could be on and get offended, but like, just teachers that I know, that say like the nature of the children now versus even 10 years ago, completely different. Everything is blurred. Lines are blurred. Boy and girl are blurred. And it's just crazy, man. It's that's why for us, it's just like everything is a lifestyle choice. So, they say that nowadays, that both parents have to work because you can't afford not to, but that's a choice, we choose to homeschool. We choose to we do spend more on food because up until we get to the place where we want to go, which hopefully will be in the next couple of months, we're going to get a little bit more land. We're allowed to have 5 hens, allowed to grow some herbs and vegetables. But where we live now. So we live in suburbia now, man. So like my house is like, like my house is like, we got some little onions. We got like very little things that we're growing. So we have to spend more money on food, but at the very least, we do spend that money because we make the choice to feed them the right stuff. But the bottom line is all of this is a lifestyle choice, and the problem is it's hard. It's really hard for people to completely disconnect. It's really hard for them to even disconnect from their phones. Like we've been doing the Sabbath now for this will be our 9th week. And dude, let me tell you, it's amazing. Friday night, like first of all, Friday all day, we prep the house, we clean the house, we prep food before. And then because my wife and I both have businesses that have us online all the time, we're not on the phone, we're not on anything like that. We spend the time with the family. Something that simple is crazy. My sleep is better that night. But what I've noticed over these last 2 months is that my sleep is better the rest of the week, So the ability to disconnect and to, people don't notice what's going on because they got their heads down. They're not looking. I just posted something and I swear, obviously I'm getting throttled on it because it's ridiculous. Like, I have a detox routine that I do every morning that it's literally I go in my sauna. I have a little sauna in my house. And I do a few things. I take silica, just because of like, if you just get your head out of your phone and you look up in the skies are just like painted with all types of stuff, aluminum, barium, salt, everything. And I literally, the last 2 months, all I did was, a couple of days a week was look up. Half the time I saw the planes when they were spraying it. And, it's crazy the amount of toxins that are everywhere. So, but no one's noticing because they're distracted, like it's crazy.
I mean, I think a lot of it started for me, when I started noticing it, if you like, when adults started buying themselves sweets all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? When you're a kid and you go to a sweet shop and you buy a chocolate bar or something, when it became part of the adults' like regular shopping to buy multi-packs of big bags of crisps and all this, and you're eating like children, but you're adult, so obviously your kid is going to copy you. You can't say to your kid, right, you have an apple, I'm going to have this big bag of
chips. No, that's terrible. They notice what you do more than what you say. But the worst part about it is that even worse than that, they go to school and what do they reward them with? They always reward them with candy. So it's like they associate that garbage with like feelings of happiness. And then parents, unfortunately, also what parents will do, which kills me, it's a lot of the time it's what they were taught, it's what you said, like this happened probably 70s and 80s. Parents started to, it used to be that you would eat a cake on a birthday, that was the thing, you would have a cake, and then, maybe Halloween would come around, you would have some candy, and that's how it went. But it's not like that anymore. Like you said, people are buying bags of candy to keep in their home for what? For no reason.
That's why they have cupboards full of it.
Yeah. And then they like I said, when they do well in class, they get a lollipop. When they're feeling down, oh, let's go get you an ice cream. And it's like, it's just, and then we tell them, I would say 18, but that's completely a lie. I would say when they're 25 or whatever, when they finally get out, because they're not leaving. I left the house at 18, and I was better off for it, because my dad told me I got, there was one time that I came home late, and my mom was like worried, and I was like, Mom, you don't need to worry. And my dad's like, there's only room for one rooster in the hen house, because my dad has a really thick accent. And I was like, you're absolutely right. We can't both be in this house now. I'm 18, I gotta go. But just doing, just getting away from having them associate, comfort with food. That's huge, man, because like that's because then we tell them, okay, you're free, now go make some good decisions. It's like, how are they going to do that? How are they going to, you haven't provided them with anything. And of course, at the other end, you don't want to completely hold everything back from them, because they're going to just go wild. So what we do is, like in my house, is like, look, I'm not going to get you junk food. But for example, like a few Sundays ago, my son and a few of the neighbors, they did a lemonade stand, and they made a killing. They went around the whole neighborhood, and they made like $24. They made like $6 each. And so I'm not going to get mad at him if he walks to the store now and he comes home with a bunch of candy, because he spent the whole Sunday working for that money. I didn't buy it for him, so I'm not contributing to it, but go ahead and eat that. And then since he doesn't eat it often, he usually feels like crap. And that's the main lesson that I want to teach him, is like, when you grow up and you feel like something's off, don't directly go to the healthcare system. You realize that there's something in your diet, there's something in your lifestyle that you could change,
Well, that's it. Like I said, that they'll have cupboards full of food, they'll have everything else. So you have got to set the example. I mean, I think nowadays, you sound like an old man, really, when I think nowadays, but I think parents put too much faith in the schools to teach them everything. They think, right, well, if I send him to school, then I don't have to really do anything. And then, if he comes to me with a question, I'll answer. But other than that, whereas they're picking up everything you're doing, they're watching you all the time.
Yep.
And, however you act, that's how you're going to that's how they're going to act. I did with my parents, for years. I was, my dad had a short fuse, and he'd get annoyed with everything, he'd get violent, and I was like that for a bit, do you know what I mean? And it's only when you step, or someone else sees that and says, well, why are you acting like that? That's not how normal people act.
Yeah, and then it's good when you get that little wake-up call, man.
But yeah, I mean, we are the example for them. We're they're with us more than they're at school. I mean, obviously we do homeschool and stuff, but even the people who send them to school, they're with us a lot more, and we're showing them the life they could have, if you like, and hopefully better. Hopefully you can have a better life than I do. But this is the basis. Do you know what I mean? So if your basis is wrong, if your foundation's wrong, and you've got cupboards full of sweets, and you're sitting on the couch all day and you don't do anything, and whatever it is, your kids are going to pick up on that, and that's you've ruined them, and then they've got to try and learn how to be a normal person at 25 or something.
Yeah, and like back to what you said about setting the right example. Number one, my wife was that kid who knew that her parents were full of crap. Like, she just was like ahead of the game even when she was young. So she knew that was something that we could never do. And then on top of that, I want my children to trust me, so I tell them the truth always, like when they ask me something. And then, that even goes to like, even when they do things that are dangerous, it's like switching the way you look at it from like, don't do that, because that's like the automatic thing. But one thing we learned from someone that we were following just when they were really young is she'd say, look, if you climb up on that and you fall from there, it's gonna hurt. And then the minute that they fall and it hurts, then they're gonna start listening to you. They're gonna start trusting you. And the same thing with like if they ask me something and like he knows that I'm full of crap or I don't tell him the truth, how do I expect him to tell me things? And I'm gonna want him to tell me things because it's only gonna get more complicated as he gets older, you know.
Well, it's a two-way thing, isn't it? They've got to trust you, you've got to trust them, you know. And then, I mean, my lad's, I mean, he's spot on. He's not one of them who kind of makes stuff up or lie. You know, he can't lie. You can tell straight away. He's like the worst liar. Do you know what I mean? But he's very rarely kind of. He broke his bike once when he was with his friend's house and he broke his bike. And he came back and he came up with some like ridiculous story about how it was like. But it's like, and then just cracked straight away. But other than that, he's not. But that's like you said. You know, if we don't lie to them, there are uncomfortable truths that you have to tell them sometimes, or there are things you have to admit to, or whatever. And it's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? But at least it shows them it's okay if I'm wrong, or it's okay if whatever, because I've corrected it now, or I've put it right, or whatever. And then hopefully they do the same with you. So, if they've messed up, just come and tell me and then we'll sort it out. And, hopefully you've sorted it out by now.
Yeah, you gotta reward that. You gotta reward them taking responsibility, even if they did the wrong thing. There's nothing I would hate worse. There's two things I really hate. Number one is one of the brothers snitching on the other. I cannot stand that. Don't you ever snitch on your brother. You gotta protect your brother. And number two is don't lie to me. And you're right. You have to set that example, especially for us, because people look to us for health stuff and all that. And so if I just kind of have this fake personality with my son, he's going to think that he can't live up to it if he makes a mistake. So we actively go out of our way to tell them, that's something that we have something framed up. Is like, we say, I'm sorry. We admit when we make mistakes, and we also say, winners don't lose, they learn. That's like, the best thing you could do is just realize, look, you're not going to win them all, but like, if you could learn from it, it's much better.
So do you think they're going to follow your path, and get into the bodybuilding and stuff like that? Or?
Honestly, man, my oldest is so interesting. He's such an interesting boy. Like he's a lot like my wife. He loves like art stuff. He's very creative. I don't know if he loves what he does instead of like, all of the stuff that I did, like the typical, American football, lifting weights. He loves like outdoor things, like X Games type stuff. Like he loves getting on weird things. Like his birthday just passed and we went to a skate park and, he has a scooter. He's got this other thing. And now he just got something, like everything is like outdoor implements that he really gets into learning like the technique and all the tricks and all those things. So I don't think he'll be, number one, I'm not sure if he's going to be like me as far as like the meathead type. And number two, he definitely he is like me in the sense that he likes to be healthy. Like, if I know something's healthy, even if it tastes like crap, I'll do it. And he's like that. So I don't know, man. I don't know what he's gonna do. But like one thing I do say is like, he started his first business when he was 6 years old. He wanted a bearded dragon, and he started selling dream catchers. We would basically pick up sticks from he was playing, soccer. He was playing football at the time, and we would pick up sticks from the place where he would play, and then he would make them, and we bought him some feathers and stuff off of Amazon. And he made like $300 and he got it. And I tell him, like, it's not about what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, what do you want to do? Like, what value do you want to provide? What need do you want to address? Why not start doing that now? No,
absolutely. I mean, the outdoorsy stuff, I mean, it's still good to get into. I mean, especially kind of like X Gamesy type of stuff. It doesn't have to be with the X, but it's certainly kind of, it's going to teach him, to have less fear. It's going to teach him to sort of, and then the confidence that you get from that. So, I mean, they're all good things, even if they just end up as hobbies or whatever. They're still kind of character building, good things to be into, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, that's good. I never thought of that, but that's definitely another, upside to it, is like it teaches them to be okay with risk.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what, that's how I got into what I was doing, Jimmy, with the stunt work and stuff. I mean, I was probably too stupid to be scared of stuff, but I was never like,
Same.
I was always a kid who'd kind of jump his bike or try and jump his bike the furthest. I didn't always make it. But you know what I mean? I was always that like the retard who like.
That was me, man. That was me. My dad. I remember I came home. I was in 7th grade, and I had a football game the next day, and my dad had to go get us takeout. And my friends were right in front of my house with a bike ramp, which is another thing we don't see. Not only do we not see bike ramps, we definitely don't see homemade bike ramps like the one that they made, And so my dad's like, "Don't get on the bike. You got a game tomorrow." And I was like, "Okay." And so as soon as he, went around the corner, I'm like, "Give me the bike. Give me the bike." Get up on the bike, go up, and I go like this in the air. And then when I hit the ground, I didn't bring the steering wheel back to normal, so I went head first into the ground, and my tooth chipped, and all this was like all messed up. And I had a game the next day, and I couldn't even wear a mouthpiece because my teeth were loose. Everything hurt. But like, same thing. Too stupid to be scared. I was just like, I don't care what you say. I'm gonna try it.
I think it's a good thing, really. But I mean, my lad's kind of the other way, but he's very kind of academic. Do you know what I mean? He's very focused. He's very kind of, you give him a task, he'll do it. And he's sort of, he's really into English and sort of like, he would never do that. Do you know what I mean? But I don't expect everyone to do the same thing. But so long as you're confident in what you're doing, I mean, I'm trying to steer him a little bit, but ultimately, it's his life, and if he's finding something that he likes doing and he's good at, not to start. Do you know what I mean? Just stick with that. Don't sort of give that up to go and do something else just because he had it with a couple of his friends didn't go to uni and stuff. They just started working. And he's all, well, they've got more money than me now. So what does it matter? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter now. It won't matter in 30 years or whatever. I mean, if some of my friends have got more money than me, I don't care.
Yeah.
They're doing jobs they hate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a happy life. I've got a happy wife, and what's better than that? Do you know what I mean? Just because he's got an extra bedroom in his house, I really don't care.
I met some of the saddest, most depressed people when I found myself going to I went to an Ivy League school. I didn't even know what this place was. I thought it was in DC. It was Columbia University, and it was a fluke the way that they found me, because my quarterback sent them film, and I had never seen so much money in my life. When I went up to that school, these kids had so much money, and they were the most depressed, neurotic people I had ever met. Like I had never, in my group of friends, I had never encountered anyone nearly as neurotic as just like, and imagine there's some baggage that comes with that. And I would 10 times more appreciate like I would rather have all of the anxieties of not making ends meet than the anxieties that come with that, because the anxieties of having like, all this money, your parents aren't really around, they're neurotic too, So I'm totally with you, man.
But I kind of like it. I like sort of trying to make ends meet and stuff sometimes. I find it like a challenge.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, I wouldn't like to be in a cardboard box and then think, "Oh, this is a challenge." Do you know what I mean? But I'd like.
Yep.
I like not having a lot, but trying to make the best of it, trying to make it work. So it's cold in the winter because we don't have the heating on and stuff. But, so what? I've saved a lot of money this year, and do you know what I mean? And that's I'd rather put that money into something else. But yeah, there's something, because there's a sense of achievement when you do get through it. When you do survive the winter, or you do find an angle to do something with it, or whatever.
It makes really good stories. It makes for really good stories later too, and like. I've actually told my wife, part of me wanted to like move us up somewhere cold, because like having to go through winter is something that these children have never had to go through, man. Like it's basically spring and summer year round. So I'm with you, man. I mean, and I think, like I said, having what you're doing, so you gotta find wood. You know, I mean, and you gotta, you know, a lot of the time you gotta chop the wood. Which, by the way, did you see what Big Bear shared the other day? The thing with the tire.
Yeah, with the
Oh, dude, that is freaking awesome. That is awesome. That's an amazing hack.
I mean, even like kind of like daft things where you know my wife gets annoyed with me sometimes because if something breaks, she wants a new one, and I'll try and fix it. It'll be all right. I'll fix it, and by the time I've fixed it, it looks like something from Mad Max. Do you know what I mean? But it works.
That's
and it's
good that you fix it. That's problem solving.
Or whatever that that'll come in handy one day, and that'll and so you put it all back together, and it works, but it looks ridiculous. But it saves buying it, because if you buy another one, that'll break as well, probably. Do you know what I mean?
Nowadays everything breaks.
Exactly.
It breaks right after the warranty ends, right after the the limited warranty.
Not half the time.
Yeah.
But again, as far as my lad's concerned, he's watching that, and yeah, he'll mock me and take the mick out of it and stuff. But hopefully, he's taking something from it, so that when he's on his own and he's got his own house and something breaks, he's not immediately getting onto Amazon and ordering a new one. He's trying to find a way of fixing it. He's trying to find a way of, or maybe I can do without that, or maybe I can, you know what I mean? That sort of thing. So that's what I say. Like a challenge.
Look, nowadays, I think there's a few areas where people really need to because the whole prepping thing, it's nonsense because it assumes that the world's going to go back to normal. So you have all these people that, they have these high-tech systems and they're holding on to food. They're not learning how to grow food, which is a problem. But for me, really important, you got to be able to walk for miles and miles and miles. That's something that everybody should be able to do, in case something happens. And you should also be able to know how to like basically fast. Like you should know how to go without food for a while. And, a lot of people who don't really have that much, sometimes are forced to do that. And they'll be better prepared. I'll tell you that. They'll be better prepared than people who are, just really, really comfortable. And things like what you said are huge because, what happens when the grid gets completely shut down? What happens when you have to learn how to solve problems? And of course, that's part of why you need community. You need to have because for me, I'd be screwed if I didn't have a few of the friends that I have around me that I know can get certain things done that I know definitely don't know how to do, Well,
I mean, electronics, I don't have a clue with. If I see a load of wires, it's the most terrifying thing. I don't have a clue. Anything mechanical and stuff, I'm fine with, on cars and stuff. But as soon as it gets to the electric part of a car, like, oh no, I have no idea what any of that does.
And it sucks because those cars, the older cars, those are better, man. They're just so much better.
I've changed my car now, and I've bought an older one because the car I had was just mechanically fine. It was just the electrical problem after electrical problem. It was just a pain. And because I couldn't fix it, I had to keep taking it into the garage, and then they'd fix it and replace something, and it was costing a fortune. Yeah. And there was, like I say, there was nothing wrong with the car, and the things that were going wrong didn't even need to be on the car anyway. They were just useless features that I never used or whatever. Yeah. I swapped it in and got an older one, and it's probably the best or one of the best cars I've had. So that's the beauty of it, because it's something I can work on. It's something I know about, and I can do whatever. So again, it's not. Whereas some of my friends will say, "Well, no, why would you buy an older car? You should always buy newer. You should always, that's their mentality. It's the badge on the driveway or whatever."
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, if something does go wrong, I mean, hopefully it doesn't. But if something does, these people are lost. I mean, and again, like you said, with the bug out bag or the prepper things, with the bug out bags and stuff. I mean, I never really saw if something's going to go wrong to the extent that you have to leave your home, that's something big. Do you mean that's a big thing that's happened? So you carrying a rucksack with a knife and a torch and a box of matches and 3 tins of beans isn't going to help you that much. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's going to be skills. You're going to have skills, man. Yep. That's why, for me, it's I have, because I wouldn't have known this if I didn't have this. I've had to buy books and stuff, because it's with plants, 97% of plants are inedible. So, you know, like knowing what I can eat around me, that's a big thing. You need to do that. You need to learn that. And just simple things, you know, just simple things that unfortunately 90 years ago, everybody kind of knew.
Yeah.
You know, just knowing how to do simple things, you know? So.
Well, I mean, it is the skills. It's still knowledge, but it's a different type of knowledge, isn't it? It's going back to going back to base, going back 100 years or whatever.
Yep.
I mean, if a time traveler came here from 100 years ago, they'd be the best mechanic in town, and they'd be the best whatever in town. Do you know what I mean? And if we went back to 100 years ago, we wouldn't last 5 minutes.
100%, man. Because and this is just knowledge that was inherent.
Yeah.
Fathers passed it on to their sons, you know. It's a shame, but you know, it's just one of those things. Like I said, that's where you see the specialization of labor. You could do that with your community, you know, like it's like something where you can have, okay, who knows how to do this? All right, let's make sure that, can we trust them? Okay, let's make sure that we can have them around.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, ideally, you want to build like your perfect desert island, don't you? So you want, you know, if there was a plane crash or whatever, and you need to survive, who would you want on that plane to make your desert island the best? So you'd need one of those, so that's what you kind of build in your community around.
Yep.
You know, and you don't need a lot of people. You know, you don't need 50, 60 people in your gang. You know, you just need, you know, 5, 10, whatever, you know, some good families, and, you know, your kids can grow up together. They're learning off each other. You know, that's all you need. But going back to the beginning, it is just setting an example. You know, if you set it, people will follow you.
Yep. 100%, man.
So you said about growing food and stuff. I mean, is that something you've been doing for a while, or is it like a recent?
Oh my gosh, man. So we've done everything from, you know, herbs to berries to, you know, like I said, onion. We haven't had, and we just did some squash. The thing is, like, it started to get too big, and we don't have anywhere to put this stuff. So it's like everything is on hold, and this has been something that we wanted to do for years. But the place that my wife, you know, thinks I'm crazy. My wife, I'm the type of person who's like, this is you know, it's an older house, because this house is new. You know, we built this house. This house is older, but it has way more land. And so I'm just kind of saying, okay, if we could get into that house, that would be when we would start everything and do it, you know, in depth. But knowing my wife, she's like, you can't just show up to a place like that. We need to look a little bit, because we're really lucky. We put a lot down on this house. The house, the price of the house has gone up like crazy. And so because of that, not only would I make some money, but I would be able to, you know, move somewhere where I actually want to live more. The house is much older, but, you know, we have way more land. And what we have right now is your typical cookie cutter, you know, suburbia plot. You know, we have a corner lot, but it's not that big. And half the yard is my boy's trampoline, you know, so we need more land, man. So we haven't really gone too far into that, you know, but I definitely want, you know, like I said, we're not allowed to have roosters, but I don't want roosters anyways. If I just could have like a few hens, get a bunch of eggs, get a bunch, you know, start cooking stuff. My buddy, who's part of that group that we were talking about, that group, that community, he's doing all types of cool stuff. He's starting to like grow things together, see like how plants can grow next to each other, and do all types of things like that. And so he's learning on his own. So I would just learn from him, you know. All this stuff is really, you kind of have to, like, you could watch videos and all that stuff, but I feel like you kind of have to, this guy's, oh, Polar Bears, roosters, a worthless ass, what he says. Yeah, I wouldn't want a rooster, man. Roosters cause problems. You know, I just want eggs, and we're not even allowed to have them anyway. So, and eggs, once they get laying, I feel like if it's warm, you get a good amount anyways. That's really all I want. You know, I have a really good relationship with my local rancher, so we get stuff from him. I have a really good relationship with my local farmer. Duck eggs, chicken eggs. He's got all types of good stuff. So for the foreseeable future, I could still get a lot of that stuff from them.
Yeah, you don't need it.
Yeah, I don't need it. I would love to eventually get like one goat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just to have number one, just to have some dairy.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, the minute you talk about like a cow, that's high level stuff. And
Yeah.
the house that I get it wouldn't make sense to do that, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No, you're talking a lot of land for a cow. I mean, to have it comfortable as well, you need a lot of land, and then you need your milking areas. Yeah, it's a big
yep,
thing, and that is something, you know, that's a daily
yep.
commitment, you know. So wherever you go or whatever, you know, you can't go away for a week and leave your cow on its own. So you know, so
Exactly. But we
yeah.
don't, you know, that used to be a big part of, you know, our whole idea was to like to travel a lot because we
Mhm.
wanted the kids to be around the world. Because then when they would try to cast these spells on them, my kids would be like, "What are you talking about? I was just over there. Like that's not how things
Yeah.
are, you know." But
Mhm.
then when all of this happened, we realized that that would change, you know, like, and that's
Mhm.
fine. You know, we don't have to. In fact, you wouldn't catch me dead. My wife just with this with her business, she just told me that there was a potential trip to Mexico,
Right.
but it's like it's not even worth it, you know, because coming back into the country, they're gonna try to nose rape her, and she's not gonna do
Mhm.
that, you know. So, you know, it's like, fine, we won't do that, you know.
Yeah.
Let's do some road trips. Let's go. Let's get in the car and just go around the country and do that. That's basically it, you know.
No, we're exactly the same. We always went to America. We used to go to America every 18 months, 2 years, as a family. And, you know, we've kind of grown up doing that. We always used to go over to the West Coast. So I've never been to Florida, but we always used to go over to California.
It's an oasis.
Um, mm, um,
It really is.
my wife's been to Florida a couple of times when she was younger. Because a lot of English people go over to Florida because it's obviously a shorter flight and stuff, and then they go over to like Orlando and stuff. But I've never been to Florida. But we were supposed to be going. I think when lockdown hit in March, we were supposed to be going to America in June. And so obviously that got cancelled, and we rearranged it to September, and then it got cancelled again. And then, but now I can't even imagine getting on a plane. It's so far kind of removed from. Whereas it was just perfectly. As soon as we came back from one holiday, it was right. Let's look forward to the next plan. You know, it was just that was what we did. Do you know what I mean we were the people who went to America every 2 years?
Yep.
Whereas now, like I say, I don't have a clue when I'm going to be next over there. But it's not important because it's weird how you kind of your priorities shift or your outlook shifts or whatever. Just you know, from something like that.
I mean, it sucks to like from a people standpoint, you know, that's the only thing it really
Mm-hmm.
sucks. And it also, you know, being that, for example, Europe, like so much history, you know, so much like way older than this little young country. So I would have liked
Mm-hmm.
for them to see things in person, but like you said, it's not. You just kind of adjust, you know. You just
Yeah.
adjust.
I mean, I haven't been to many places in Europe. I've been to France. I've been to Paris. And then even when I've been to Spain and stuff, it's just kind of lads' holidays when I was like 19, 20, 21, you know, and then just going around the bars and stuff. I wasn't looking at the architecture and, you know, that's
I
it.
would. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Speaking of, man, I wish if you would do this for me because I wish I could go. There's I think it's in Czech Republic. There's a clock. Have you ever seen this clock that they got
Oh,
in Czech?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
the one that
12th
didn't get
century.
changed as well at some point.
What'd
It
you
used
say?
to have like a big, it got altered or something, didn't it, at one point?
I might have, but it has like a lot of interesting things going
Mhm.
on where it has like the sky clock in it. It has just a lot of stuff, and it's either the 11th or 12th century. It's nuts, man.
No, I've seen that. I saw it on. Have you seen that documentary? There's like a 5 hour long this
Oh,
huge
buddy,
documentary.
you're talking about Ewar stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah. Lost
the,
History of
the
Flat Earth.
history of yeah,
He actually has continued that. He's already
yeah. I haven't
done.
seen the new ones.
There's two more that he's done recently. I love his stuff, man.
Mhm.
I sent Owen. I sent him the first one as soon as it came out because
Right.
he found it out. Like I just stumbled upon it like months before he did,
Mhm.
and I was just like, it was one of those things that like you want to show everybody because it's just really, really well done, man. And it's true about the rewriting of history. And now he's getting deeper into it. Now he's talking about you should watch these latest ones, man, because the latest one.
Watch the new ones.
Yeah.
We just haven't had time, like, because I was getting my wife into them as well, because she's kind of like Truther adjacent. She sees through a lot of stuff,
That's
but
good, though. That's good.
At the same time, she's not bothered. Do you know what I mean? She's kind of like, yeah, that's nonsense, but I don't care. I want to watch TV, or I want to, whatever. Do you know what I mean?
It's better to be that than.
Oh yeah, she's not a tinfoil hat person. But we watched those original ones together, and I could tell she was like, "What the fuck?" Like, you know what I mean? She was blown away with stuff.
I sneak this thing into everything that I do, like this map right here. And it's like most people who look at the map, they're just like, they have no idea, and then it's like, well, this is the world, the World Health Organization map, it's the UN map, and they don't put two and two together. Like, yeah, that's a world map. That's not that globe thing that you see.
So that's something you've always been into, like the kind of the conspiracy stuff and that kind of thing.
Man, I was in New York City when 9/11 happened. So I was there when it happened, and very, very shortly after, I 100% knew that this was complete nonsense. And so for me, it started back then, and I tell people this is like, I don't know, like it's hard to tell people now to start with something small because there's so many big things that you can't go through the process that I went through. But bottom line, you start to see that things are not what they say they are, and then you start to realize that you were wrong on this, and then you see something else, and you become a little bit more comfortable with accepting the idea that that's nonsense. And by now, it's like by now for me, it's like it really is pretty easy for me to see how everything is fake. Like everything is just it's amazing, man. It's really, really, it's really well orchestrated. It's really well done. Like everything that they've done from a social standpoint, the way they've rewritten history. And, imagine you talk to someone normal and they will think 100% that you're just out of your mind, what are you talking about? Like just the idea that a contagion has never been proven. It's never been shown to pass from patient 0 to patient 1. You tell that to someone, what are you talking about? Look at all the people that have died and look at all this. And it's like, yeah, but the whole thing, people are dying from something, 100%. And what they had to do is create some sort of problem enough to scare people so that they can really kill people, because now, people now are dying very much a lot, so it's definitely, I guess but I will say with respect to the realm, my wife started watching Big Bear before I did. So she started watching probably, I think it was like September, October of 2019. That's when she stumbled upon him. And then she tells me, and by November, she got to watch this guy. He's really funny, blah, blah, blah. He's got some. And in November, she tells me, I think the Earth's flat. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like, that's a bridge too far. I'm like, you're out of your mind. And by February, because right around that time, Owen was going through it. And he and then I was like, by February, I was like, all right, this is ridiculous. And I went on a 7-month, just during 2020 of all times, like I went on this 7-month journey and lots of sleepless nights. And by the end of it, I was just like, and now that's just obvious to me. But I went deep because I'm the type of person, when I get into something, I get obsessive and I read everything and I go into it. So, but yeah, I guess the short answer is, it's been a while, man. It's been since 9/11 that I really started to see, all of these things. And then it becomes how to comb through all the misinformation, because there's so much misinformation on purpose so that you can't just go online and watch a video because, there's misinformation thrown in with everything, so that you feel like if you don't dig deep enough, you're not going to really ever get to the truth. So it's just gotten me really good.
It's they definitely poison the wells. Do you know what I mean? They definitely kind of, you know, they will put a sprinkling of truth in there with a load of lies, and a sprinkling of lies in with the truth. You know, and it's hard to discern it. But like you said, once you start seeing it, you can see it a lot more. Do you know what I mean? You see, and then you start seeing things ahead of time. You start seeing, I mean, like with the corona stuff, that was straight away. When they started talking, I think it was towards the end of 2019 on the news here, and they kept saying about this virus in China. They kept saying there's this thing in China, and it's quite deadly, and but nothing had happened yet. And I said to my wife, why are you talking about this thing in China? Because no one cares. Do you know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? No one in England is bothered about something that's happening in China making people sick. It wasn't killing anyone or anything at the time. Yeah. And so they must be planning something or whatever. And then once it got to January, we started getting proper news reports and stuff about it. I was like, okay. So it was, for me, it was just straight away like, obviously this is nonsense. But 20 years ago, I probably wouldn't have seen it. You know, so it is kind of
same.
Yeah, thing. You've got to once you work out how they do things and you know the methods that they use, so they'll put it on the news first before, you know, just to plant those little seeds, or they'll you know, it's like those have you ever heard of there's a man called Derren Brown? He's like a hypnotist fella, and he basically he's an English fella, but I think he did do stuff in America. But he basically kind of he puts things into your mind, you know, like your subconscious and all that.
And then he tells you what you're thinking later on.
Yeah, and then everyone. But he did quite a few shows where he was like, he was getting people to rob banks and getting people to do all this different stuff, and they had no idea they were doing it. Do you know what I mean? And like subliminal stuff, you know, they just have like a number hanging in the corner and you wouldn't notice it, and you know, but he's like filming it all and showing you how they all do it, and then that number's the number to open the safe, and you know what I mean, just stupid things like that. But but that's how they do it. Do you know what I mean? That's how they'll get it into you, and they'll do all these little things, but then all these little things that most people don't notice become a huge thing, and then before they know it, they're trapped in the, you know, they're robbing a bank, or they're putting a mask on the face, or whatever they're doing, you know.
It's crazy, man. And then you add in like the pharmaceuticals and everything, and it makes it that much easier, man. Yep.
So what?
Oh, by the way, someone said the Q thing, and I will say that's another one, because at the beginning I saw the at the beginning of like what was the one that introduced Q to me? It was she was from like Denmark or something. It was a bunch of YouTube videos, and so I remember at first the Q thing, I started to entertain that a little bit, but what really got me to just be like, this is complete nonsense, is that it was talking about Trump, you know, like, and it was like hailing him up, and then you started to see just how well engineered that was. But yeah, there's people still thinking that the White Hats are gonna come.
Still Hillary around the sewers.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, again, it's kind of, I mean, it's like the kind of the trucker protest at the moment, you know, the one in Canada.
Oh my goodness, yeah, man.
I mean, that's
people are happy, and these are the very people that are gonna be really angry when they see those empty shelves, and they're cheering them on.
But that's it. I mean, there's been a lot of protests from the left, if you like. You know, so you've had the Black Lives Matter ones, you've had the Chop Chaz, whatever that was in Seattle.
Yep.
You know, the gay, you know, all the kind of protests that they do, and the majority of the people who are supporting on the truckers now would have been completely against them.
Yeah. And
you know, and their actions and the behaviour and all that, and then but now they're doing it the other way. Well, yeah, obviously we have to do that, otherwise how can we be free?
Because there's no principles. It's only tribalism. They don't have principles. Like it's so messed up. It's like It's like my dad. You know, I love my dad, but you know, he's into this left-right paradigm. Like he's never gonna snap out of it. And there will be people that will agree with you, and then when you say, and that's why I don't vote, and they're like, well, how are we gonna take him out of office? And I'm like, no, you don't. We were just talking for 20 minutes. What are you talking? You know, like they don't. Where did I lose you? Where did I lose you?
That's it. I mean, it is just their bias. You know, it is. So if they're going to do that, then your opinion on the other thing is nonsense as well. Do you know what I mean? You can't only be right when you're right, if you like. You know, you can't only have your opinion when it suits. But yeah, like you said, there's a lot of people like that. But again, though, it comes back to the manipulation and the tricking and the making this, you know, left right. I mean, we have exactly the same in England. We have the left and the right, and with the red and the blue, and you know, exactly the same thing. And the left will be in power for, you know, a go, and then they're awful. We get them out. The right come into power for a turn. Well, they're awful. We get them out. The left go back.
They finished the last guy's work too. Like
nothing changes.
It's complete continuation.
Nothing changes. I mean, my dad's similar to yours. He's very right wing. He's very kind of, you know, dyed in the wool kind of thing. And I was saying this to him recently, really. So I said, like, if you didn't know who was in power and they changed, what would change? Do you know what I mean? What would change tomorrow for you? Or what would change next week and stuff? And he couldn't think of anything that would change.
Yep.
So it's not one of these in power. It's, you know, the one in the middle's in power, and the grabblers or whatever.
That's why people in my state, for example, like we got a governor that's whatever's happening, he's keeping things pretty good right now in Florida. And we got all of them wanting him to run for president. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, you know, like if he goes to Washington, that like, who knows who's going to come in? You know, for me, I will say that my wife and I, because we've thought about this, because we went all the way to anarchist, like in 2011, 2012. And then and Owen was one of the guys that like really brought us back. You know, now it's like, we look at it from now as like, listen, I got to pray for my leaders. That's what my Bible tells me. And I know that if there were to be a leader that would be around during like the apocalypse, the one that we got right now is perfect for that, you know? So, but at the same time, we were like, you know, what are some things that we can vote on? For sure, like a sheriff, if you have like, you know, your sheriff, or even like specific issues, like if they're going to mess with my homeschooling, I'm definitely going to vote against that. You know, if I learn about something like that, but participating in all of the rah and all of that stuff is just, it's a huge waste of time. So, but you know, I got caught up in it a little bit in 2020. I got caught up in it for like a month or two, and then I snapped out of it, you know? So we all have our weak spots, but like for me, I think I'm pretty immune at this point. Once again, like the flat earth thing, that's like, that makes pretty much everything, it makes it really easy because it's such a big one that it just
once you go to that level and you see that they're literally lying about everything, then the rest of it's kind of insignificant. Do you mean I don't care who's prime minister? I don't care. Do you mean because you tell me I'm living on a spinning ball and that we went to the moon?
My wife says all the time.
Dinosaurs used to be around, and you know I don't care about Boris Johnson.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think you kind of, I find myself almost dumbing myself down when I'm with sort of my friends. I mean, not many of them think the way I do about stuff, and most of them are fully kind of, you know, believe everything that anyone ever says. And you avoid conversations, and because I've tried in the past, and I've tried sort of bringing certain things up or whatever, and it just falls on deaf ears really. But yeah, you dumb yourself down to the extent that you think, right, well, this is how they think all the time. Like me dumbing myself down, this is normal for them. I mean, this is like their level. So when they're telling me I'm stupid, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. I find
Do you know what I mean?
it kind of sucks because a lot of this stuff is really interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a pain, because like, and I got a lot of friends that like I got my buddy, he's British, and like, he went to live in Abu Dhabi for a while.
Mhm.
And then he moved to Florida. He's here in Florida. And it's the same thing. It's his text group. It's literally 50-50 down the middle, which is, I think that's a pretty good
Yeah.
percentage, because I would have thought it was worse. But it's true. Like 50% of them they completely think you're out of your mind. You're just completely out of your mind. And like I said, it is kind of a pain because like a lot of this stuff is really interesting to talk about. Like, just from just analyzing it.
With them. It's not. I don't want to sort of sit there and lecture them.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I find it interesting, Jimmy. So let's talk about this. Why do you think they did that? Or what's your view on it and stuff? That's the whole point of it. But now it's just you're an idiot. Okay, you know how much I'm throwing myself down for you.
Yeah, it's just poop flinging. It's just throwing. It's just flinging some poop.
So have you ever been back to, or have you ever been to Cuba with the kids and stuff and taken them to?
We went in 2018, and man, that was crazy because we thought the old generation of Cubans don't want anything to do with opening up relations, opening up trade. It's just too that wound will never close. But the newer generation, the younger generation, we didn't grow up there. So, I've always been the guy who's like, look, the Soviet Union didn't fall because of the arms race or anything like that. It probably fell because of somehow ideas got in there. Rock and roll happened. They saw that, So that's why I was always. But then I realized the reality that when I went to Cuba, we were talking with these people and they sound like family, because it's like the people that I grew up with, they talk like my family, they look like my family. And they told me, I was like, well, this is at the tail end. Actually, no, what am I saying? 2018. It was 2018. Obama had been the one to open things up. And my parents were like, this is horrible, and I was like, it's probably a good thing, and actually I found out that it was bad because you don't take into account the idea, the whole crony capitalism thing where, these guys were doing tours and they, instead of, you would think that things would get better for them, more people coming in. In fact, yeah, they opened things up, but what do you think they did? They gave their big company, their big, corporation friends first dibs on the business. So these guys' routes were shrunk. It's like, I don't go half as many places as I used to go. Those people, they want cell phones and, they're just, and now it's completely, now it's just, it's really, really bad. Things got really, really bad in the last couple of years because on one hand, you can be poor and you can be so poor that you wouldn't even have the idea to talk about politics or to fight for your freedom because you're just trying to survive. But it gets to a point where you would gladly die because it's that bad. And that's where it got last year. And it started in 2018, like with this, there was a movement there of artists and people that were expressing themselves because they found out about VPNs. But yeah, it was a beautiful trip, man. It was sad. And I'm just glad I got to see it before things happened last year. Because last year is just, the news you would never know by the news, but I was following everything. Thank God for social media and the things that they were doing. They were conscripting, 13, 14-year-old kids, taking them away from their parents to go and giving them sticks to go beat up the people that were. And if you didn't, people were getting killed, people were getting disappeared. So it's really, really bad now. But the whole world marched further into that. Like the whole world went into prison in 2020, and then that's why it just blows my mind. People are actually excited and nobody's like, except for people like us, they're not suspicious of why things and coordinated too, because like it's like Denmark, you know, UK, all these people at the same time. And if you ask me what that is, I think number one, that is the fact that they've put in place the system far enough to where they've got a good infrastructure in place for like the surveillance state and all that stuff. And not only that, from a social point of view, it's already to that point where, I mean, in the UK, they admitted it. It's literally, it's like, listen, we've got enough people, you know, with the juice that it doesn't matter. So it's crazy, man, crazy times that we live in. But I think that we look what Bear's doing, like what all the Bears are doing. I think that's awesome. I stand behind that, man, and I'm always trying to like do that. Just kind of spread that whole type of attitude, that whole goal.
Well, I mean, that's all we can do. Do you mean it's not? I've said it before, and I mean, if we knew every truth or the truth to every, you know, to every question, so we know for a fact that the Earth is flat. We know for a fact that we never went to the moon. Or not. Then what? Do you mean what do you do now? Do you mean like it doesn't change anything? It doesn't. You gotta
start doing 100%.
So you know you've got to set the example, but you've just got to do for yourself. You've got to do for your family, and then you're not reliant. And then whatever these people do, it's completely irrelevant. Do you mean it doesn't matter at all?
Yep.
It's interesting what you said about Cuba there, because it sounds like they're going in and breaking it up and kind of, you know, separating it, giving the friends a piece of the pie, if you like, or whatever.
Yeah, that was when Obama kind of loosened things up, but Trump early on, he closed it back up from that standpoint. I don't know what happened with the rest of the world. Probably, you know, Cuba was always comfortable with the Soviet Union back in the day. I'm sure Russia stepped back in. The thing is that the island now at this point, the island is no longer really good for like natural resources because all of that has gone. But from a strategic point, like the island is still really important for anybody. So I'm sure whoever between the whole like Russia, Iran, China, whoever can get in there is going to, you know. But it's at right now, no one from like this country's not. Trump started stuff, and this guy didn't really do anything different. But yeah, it was interesting to find that out. It definitely gave me another perspective, man, because it just gave me a reality, you know, just a reality perspective.
I went to Cuba years ago. I can't think when it might be. Probably about 2004, something like that, 2003, 2004. We went to Guadalajara at the bottom of bottom of Cuba. And I mean, it was quite a kind of self-contained, you know, it had a private beach, and it was, you know, it was very kind of self-contained, and they had security guards because people were getting mugged, and, you know, allegedly.
How do they mug people? They don't have any weapons.
Yeah. But I was talking to one of the security guards, and he said he went. He was a trained engineer, so I said, okay, well, you know, how come you're a security guard? So he said, like, I don't know if it's still the case, but he said at the time you basically had to do a trade at school, or when you left, you had to learn a trade. But there wasn't enough work for engineers in Cuba, so he's now a security guard. But he wasn't allowed to leave Cuba to be an engineer somewhere else. That, on the basis, that seems kind of like a good idea. You know, you have to learn a trade, but you've also got to have the use for it afterwards. I mean, otherwise,
a lot of them are really, really like resourceful. Someone said about the Pedro Pan program, Peter Pan. I have aunts and friends that they did this like I think it was like the 60s. They would just put kids on flights, and they would send them to like sponsor families all over. People that I know, two of them ended up in I believe in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Right. You know, like imagine a Cuban kid just ending up in Minnesota, like they were just sending them out. But yeah, that whole thing of like you can learn a trade, or even like you can become like a physician but you don't make as much as a cab driver, which is just crazy, you know, like it just destroys all incentive. And it leads to, which is obviously by design, it leads to this. That's why the culture of like snitching was really big there for so long. You know, like you couldn't say anything because you thought you would be okay with someone, and it's, oh, you gotta see this. Have you seen this short? I'll DM it to you. It's called Utopia. It's a short film, like a 15-minute film.
I don't think so.
It's amazing, man. So this guy, he's 15 years away from his brother-in-law and sister, and he gets there, and from the minute they leave the airport, he drops his bandana. The old lady takes a picture of it, and it's like GPS signal and all this stuff, and like he gets fined for cussing, and it's like everything implemented to its fullest extent, you know? And yeah, it's really, really well done. It's very Orwellian. And it's like a 15-minute short film. I just thought of that because, you know, what ends up happening is if you find someone else doing something, you take a picture of them and you get 10% of the fine. So it really incentivizes like snitch culture. And I could totally see that happening. Like right now, what's happening, it's not money, but it's like social credit. Like it's like virtue. It's like, you know, you feel good from telling someone that they're not doing what you're doing, you know, and it can easily be incentivized financially, especially when opportunities continue to drop, like your typical opportunities continue to drop. So it's really interesting the way they play it out, man.
What, didn't they? I mean, they certainly did over here. If you knew where Germans were, if there was Germans hiding out anywhere and stuff like that, and you'd get the re-incentives to doing that. So yeah, I mean, it's a long time thing. You know, they've done it for ages. One of the things I wanted to ask you, I mean, obviously you've been into the sort of the health and fitness for a long time. For people who are maybe getting into it and who are sort of finding this kind of lifestyle and stuff, I mean, are there kind of like, is there something key that you would say, right, so long, you know, start off with this, or you know, if you do this, if you do X, you know, first or whatever, that's the way in?
Well, first of all,
I mean, obviously it depends on the person, but
yeah, I mean, diets, you know, I'm very partial to like low carb diets because number one, as we age, we've eaten a certain way. You know, most of us are going to eat a high sugar diet. So lowering your sugar is going to, number one, it's going to make you more metabolically flexible. In this country, 88% of people have some sort of metabolic dysregulation. That's ridiculous. Only 12% of people are metabolically healthy in this country. So that's the first thing. Number two, you gotta walk. Walking is something that across every single type of diet, every age group, every ethnicity, it really protects your brain and it really protects your heart. So walking is something that people should be doing daily. You know, making time, especially if you could get like a nice 20 to 30-minute walk after dinner, because what that does is it lowers your blood sugar. So, you know, what we've been told is that we got to watch what we eat. So we got to count calories and we got to burn more calories than we consume, which technically speaking, it works that way, but it doesn't exactly work that way, because if you're in an environment where your body's not burning fat, it doesn't matter how many calories you burn, you're not going to burn the fat. So what walking after dinner does, for example, lowering your blood sugar, it puts you in a more restful, first of all, it lowers your blood sugar. So if your insulin is lower when you go to bed, you're going to burn more fat when you sleep. People don't understand the fact that like most of the fat you burn is through your breath, you know, and that's just how it just gets expelled through your breath. And people don't think about that. The problem is if you're in this, like, the other thing is stress. Like you got to learn to manage stress. So like a few things that I'm really adamant about, and I'm breaking this rule right now because I'm doing this live, but like we dim the lights like right around 8 p.m. and they're by 8:30 p.m. here, the lights are off completely. No screens an hour before bed at the very least. And if you're going to be watching the TV for, you know, like an hour or something with your kids, whatever, then make sure to put on blue light blocking glasses. I should have brought up here. I got them right on the couch out there. But I put those on, and it blocks all the blue light. What it does, it really interferes with your melatonin, and sleep is huge. So that's another thing. Cutting off your food 2 to 3 hours before bed, that's another thing that's huge. All of these things that I'm saying now is just really important for sleep, because sleep is really important. Other than that, you know, I can get into the idea of like what the diet should look like. Bottom line, you know, everyone should be eating a high protein diet, because number one, it triggers satiety. So like you feel more full when you eat higher protein. And you should be getting actual protein, not too much, you know, from protein shakes. You can do that every now and then, but when I say protein, I mean, you know, get yourself, you know, some mince, some steak, some chicken, and ruminant meat. Like the best meat you could eat is the meat from lamb, venison, cows, because it's the healthiest meat. It has the most nutrients in it. Other than that, see, you've probably seen what I eat. Like I eat mostly meat, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't keep up with your diet. I'm way too much of a picky eater for your diet.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's find what works for you. Like I always say, like if you're gonna eat vegetables, cook them down. Like cook them really, really well, because, you know, even if you're eating a low carb diet, you know, I would definitely say stay away from wheat. Wheat gives most people problems. It just does. It has heavy metals in it. It has soy in it. It causes gut issues. It's bad for your immune system. It's all types of stuff. So, and it also just, it makes you hungrier. So, yeah, someone said sun. That's another thing that I would say to set your circadian rhythms. Try to get out in the morning for like a morning walk as close to sunrise as possible. And then if you're at a desk, set an alarm for like every 60, 70 minutes to just walk around for a little bit. That is super important. Other than that, either hyperthermic or hypothermic conditioning, meaning like get into cold showers, do cold showers. I do the sauna a lot because I've had my genetics done. So I know specifically that I have mutations that don't allow me to detox stuff. So all the stuff that they're spraying in my sky, you know, all the stuff that we're exposed to nowadays artificially, I'm sweating that out every morning. And when I say sauna, because someone said it must be nice, like seriously, my sauna is a heating pad and a dome that I lie in. I don't have like a big square sauna. And I got hooked up with it because one of the ways that, and I find this very valuable, because when I do what I do, I have like a decent sized platform, and we have our podcast, is I'm always leveraging that for free stuff. So my sauna was free, and I get like 14 pounds of meat a week from one of my sponsors. So I mean, that is massive for me, you know? So, but yeah, definitely look, if you don't have access to a sauna, if you can get in a gym and get really sweaty every day, that's going to be really helpful. But I would definitely recommend to people doing cold showers, especially if you're in a cold area, or even cold baths. You know, get in there.
Did you go hot to cold, or just straight into cold?
Hot to cold is really good. I actually, I'll be honest, like I do my sauna and then I do my cold shower. It's a lot different than hopping in the cold shower first thing in the morning. Woo, that's hard. But what it does is it makes you really resilient, you know, and you learn how to breathe to you know, control it. The problem is my cold showers, they only last like a minute, because number one, our pipes are really shallow in the floor in Florida, and number two, it never gets that cold. So like on the coldest days, it's really not that cold. Other than that, man, like I you know, like I said, really, really important to lower sugar. Lower your sugar, lower your I have 3 non-negotiables in my house. We don't do grains. We don't do processed vegetable oils. Not to say olive oil, you know, what else? Olive oil, coconut oil, all those things are good. And those are technically fruits anyways. But things like Crisco, soybean oil, rapeseed oil. I don't even know what a rapeseed is. It's ridiculous. All of those things you can't physically extract oil from that without a Breaking Bad like lab set. You gotta, it's really, really bad for you. So stay away from that, and then definitely no food dyes. And so those three non-negotiables, they take care of most fake food. Most packaged food is gonna have some of that crap. So it ends up meaning eat real food. Just follow Daisy. Follow what's Owen's wife's name? Daisy Love is her Instagram. Follow her and look at what she's making. I mean, and there's like my wife will share stuff. We have our kids. We'll share what we do on Fat Field Kids. It's hard to keep up, but our kids have their own Instagram page, and we show like when they're doing like homeschool projects. We try to show what they eat. We've done a really bad job about that the last 2 years. But yeah, that's pretty much it, man. It's not that complicated. The more you get into it, the more you can start doing, like, I do all types of experiments and things like that. But nail down the most important things, which is walk daily. That's huge. Get out in the sun. Manage your stress. And a big way of managing stress is managing your time on the screens, And another way is what I talked about, the sauna, the hyperthermic and the hypothermic conditioning. That makes you more resilient to stress. Canola is rapeseed. Okay, canola is rapeseed. There you go. I didn't know that.
It's all one big thing, isn't it? The more sugar in your body, the more the way you're going to react to stress is different.
It's an excitatory. Yeah, sugar actually raises your. There's GABA, which is like calming, and then there's glutamate. Sugar raises glutamate. That's why autistic kids and kids with those type of disorders, the worst thing you could do is give them sugar, because it raises their glutamate even more. And glutamate causes what you see. If you look at the nerves, everything's really excited. It's excitatory. So people with those type of issues, you want to increase their GABA. So you definitely give them coconut oil, give them high fat and low carb. It's amazing how that happens. Like I've seen, there's really good documentaries on this. There's one of them is The Magic Pill. That one might be still around. My friend Vinny Tortorich has done 3 movies called Fat, a documentary. Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. I think Part 3 just came out. And you'll see, like, they'll show nonverbal autistic kids after a short period of, and kids with epilepsy. You put them on a ketogenic diet, and that's kind of how
where it started from, or where it kind of gained traction from the epilepsy.
The 1920s. They basically found that ketogenic diets were really, really effective at treating epileptic seizures. But the problem was, I think shortly after, like in the 30s or 40s, they had their first big breakthrough for these really narcotic, brain damaging epileptic drugs. And then they just completely forgot about, ketogenic diets. And a lot of parents have been, really upset because they've had kids die and they didn't even know. Their doctors never even told them about the ketogenic diet. And there's like 33% of types of epilepsies that can never be treated by any medication. And those kids are like, they're pumping them with so much drugs, they're basically brain dead, like they're zapped out, they're not working, they're like brain dead. And you start to put those kids on a ketogenic diet, and it's amazing. Some of them will completely not have seizures. Some of them have at least a huge decrease. So it started with that, but you're never gonna see a diet like this. You can't package it. You can't sell it. It's just like, eat real food, don't eat sugar. Eat fatty meat. It's complete opposite of what they tell us.
It's just the basics, isn't it? It's the stuff.
33%.
I mean, even though they're kind of walking your dinner off and stuff, these are old things for a reason. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what people knew what to do. Whereas now people will have the tea in front of the TV and just sit there for the rest of the night, and then they'll wonder why they're getting fat. Where do you think that's going? you're not burning off, you're not doing anything. So it's obviously going to kind of harvest itself in you.
There's no intention. There's no, like, I don't think most people even spend a minute thinking about the fact that every single day for the past several years has looked the same. That is mind blowing. Like the fact that you could just like imagine like a camera pointing right at you and the same thing is like the same little motions, like little lemmings just moving around in their little, track. And that kills me, man. It's really, really bad. It really is. It's, sitting down a lot is gonna be really, really bad. All of this stuff is just, it's why I quit it's a big reason why I quit my job in 2018. The last year that I was working, I made a ton of money, and it was like, I'll never go back. I'll never go back. We struggle more now because, there's ups and downs with this. It's easy to convince somebody that I'm going to help you get a six pack because it's like, they'll do that. But the minute you tell them like, let's get your family healthy, it's not attractive. That's a much harder sell, even though it's probably the most important thing, So, but it doesn't mean I'm going to stop. We still try to, it's a big part of what we do. We try to share as much as possible, like how we feed the kids, like simple things that most people don't even think about. That was part of the reason why we did this in the first place. We would have people over and they were like, you talk about this in such a matter-of-fact way as if everybody knows, but everybody doesn't know what you know. You gotta share it, All
right, well, for people who are watching it, because obviously we'll have this and then the replays and stuff, so a lot of people are going to be watching this. So where can people find you and your family and then get this information?
Yeah, so definitely go to the website. It's fatfueled.family. Not fatfueledfamily.com. I wish you could get that, but someone took it, I guess. And one thing that I would definitely recommend is on the podcast, go to like the first episode. We've been going for like 4 years now, but like in the first 1 to 4 episodes, it's like our nutrition philosophy, our fitness philosophy, our parenting philosophy, because it really breaks down like what the problems are, what we're trying to fix. And then just go through the list of podcast episodes to really see. We've had so many really interesting people on, like I said, Lenore Skenazi, that one person. And then we also have our group coaching on there. You could do a consult with me. All of that is in the shop. So, and then of course, here on Instagram, DannyVega.ms.
Cool. Right. Just before you go, is there if anyone's got any questions for Danny, just either stick them in the chat or the little question marky thing. But I think we've covered a lot today, so I'd love to get you back on in a few months and then cover what we've missed out on.
100%.
But yeah, see if there's any questions coming through. But yeah, you're totally right. All you can do is follow. I mean, you can't control everybody else's actions. You can't control anything else. You just got to control your house. You're king of your castle, and then you control your family, and hopefully you raise your kids right enough to be able to do the same with their family.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard, man. I keep thinking about how the hell is my son gonna. I start thinking about like who's he gonna find for a partner. Because I got really lucky. Someone asked about diabetics. Like, I'll tell you right now, I'm working with someone who's type 2. And I mean, this guy has neuropathy. This guy has so many issues, man. And let me tell you, like, the number one goal is if you're not on insulin yet, don't ever get on insulin. And if you are on insulin, the number one goal needs to be to lower the dose first. And then, get back on something like a metformin, which honestly, of all the pharmacia out there, metformin is actually pretty good. Oh, type 1. Okay, actually, type 1 is at the very least, type 1, you'll be able to use way less insulin. Definitely start with low carb, not ketogenic, just because you're gonna have to really do some tweaking with your insulin dosing. But other than that, like type 1 is just it's important to lift, But yeah, I've worked with type ones. That's type ones actually, you know, once they get dialed in, it's pretty sweet, man. You know, it does kind of suck to be dependent on insulin for the rest of your life, but it's for a way different reason. So just your pancreas doesn't, your beta cells don't make insulin, so you kind of have to take it. So, but yeah, there's I'm trying to think. We've had type 1 diabetics on. I'm sure it's been 4 years.
Right. Cool. No woodshot when I'm starting over.
All right, brother.
All right, cheers. Thank you for coming on. Very much appreciate it.
Cheers, brother.
All right, take care, buddy.
Likewise.
Right, and I am on next week with paraplegic. So that won't be half as interesting or as fun as that one, but we've got to put up with him. And I think he has something to do with coffee or something. I don't really know what he does. Okie doke. Right, so I shall see you all next week. Have a great weekend. I'm going to go and warm up now for a bit. So have a great weekend, everybody. Take care. See you later.